It is my honor to introduce our featured speaker, the fire chief of our nation's capital. Chief John Donnelly Sr. was nominated by Mayor Muriel Bowser on September 4, 2020 to serve as the chief of the District of Columbia Fire and EMS Department and its 2,100 firefighters and emergency services personnel. He was confirmed by the Council of the District of Columbia on December 15, 2020. What has always amazed me about Chief Donnelly is his poise under pressure, which was certainly put to the test on January 29th when a military helicopter collided with a commercial aircraft over the Potomac River. We invited him to share his thoughts about the tragic event and how local first responders worked together in responding to what we all recognized as a national tragedy that gripped our entire nation. As CFSI Executive Director and Vice Chair of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, I would be remiss if I didn't say how grateful both organizations are for the constant support he provides to our missions. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief John Donnelly.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Washington, D.C. On behalf of the mayor, she wants everybody to know D.C.'s open, and our bars do stay open late, so please partake when we close down here. I'm John Donnelly. I'm the chief of the District of Columbia Fire and EMS Department, and I've got 33 years there, and I can tell you that probably nothing prepared me for the things that happened that night. So we should start out by acknowledging the 67 deaths on American Airlines Flight 5345 and the Black Hawk helicopter, call sign PAT 25. Take a moment. Thank you. I'd like to start out by giving you some context of what January was like here in D.C. We started out with 3 national special security events. Those are all a year-long process of planning, and we stacked them right on top of each other. I heard Chief Estep talking about the snowstorm we inserted in the middle of them. We also dealt with the line-of-duty death of Lieutenant Robert Haney at Rescue Squad 2 from occupational cancer. We administered our 200th unit of whole blood to a citizen. We responded to 18,000 calls, which is as busy a month as we've had since the pandemic. So January was a long year for DC Fire and EMS. The crash site description is important, and it becomes really important when you understand how coordinated the efforts became over time. This is a complicated area where the state of Maryland, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the District of Columbia all come together. We operate under 3 different political systems, and the crash was originally dispatched on National Airport. They send an assignment, a robust assignment. This is something that happens all the time. But that assignment also includes the DC fire boats, the Metropolitan Police boats, and a helicopter from the U.S. Park Police. An assignment at the airport is a federal, state, and local response. As long as the plane stays on the airport, it's a Virginia incident. If it happens to fall in the water, it's a DC incident because the border of DC goes to the high tide mark on the Virginia shore. It's a little bit else about this. It's a wide part of the river situated between National Airport and Bolling Air Force Base. There is no lighting out there. There's ice on the water. The air temperature is around 37 degrees. I'm driving home from dinner. I get up to the top of Rock Creek Park. I'm listening to the radio like I always do, and I hear the fireboat call in a alert at the airport for a helicopter crash. The captain is calm, cool, and collected, and he's responding to the scene. What I don't know at the time is that they were on their way back from another call, witnessed the flash in the sky at the same time the tower, when it happens, simultaneously hits the alert. That's at 48 hours. Not that late at night, everybody's up and about. So the fireboat's going. He comes back on the radio a few minutes later and says, there's a lot of traffic on the airport frequency and I can't get through. Something's happened. And he's telling communications that because he's the only DC unit going at this point. Immediately after that, he asked for the battalion chief and the water rescue assignment to be assigned to the call from DC because he realizes something's in the water, but he doesn't know what yet. After that, the Office of Unified Communications phone trees lit up at 20:52 hours, and at 20:53 hours, they dispatch an aircraft rescue assignment in the river from DC, in addition to the one that's working from the airport. Maybe not the best practice, but it works for us, okay? At 20:57 hours, the fireboat reports they're in the area and they can smell jet fuel. And at 20:58 hours, 10 minutes after the crash, he reports, "I found a wing." To which the chief says, "You found a wing? That's not a helicopter then." And he goes, "You're right." And we've got 4 bodies. And at that point, everything started to come together. The radio traffic between the airport and the other units confirmed that we had a jet involved of some sort, and it quickly became apparent that we had a commercial airliner involved. So, of course, I'm the fire chief. I'm responding to the scene. I talked to the mayor on the way down. I talked to the police chief. And because I was up and around, the police chief and I arrived on bowling simultaneously, but before anybody that wasn't dispatched on the original alarm arrived. So none of the second alarm units, and it's never good when the fire chief's the first person on the scene, right? I mean, let's be honest. So the police chief and I stayed out of the way. We listened, the battalion chief, Christopher Holmes, who was the 3rd Battalion Chief that night for DC, was doing an amazing job of coordinating, and our Special Ops Chief got on the water with the boats right away. And there were boats from Virginia, there were boats from DC, there were boats from the airport, and there were Metropolitan Police boats, and they all began searching. My concerns as the fire chief were, we've got to unify this command. And so we sent a battalion chief, a deputy chief, and eventually an assistant chief to the command post that was set up at the airport. And as that unfolded, our communications were clear, but one of the things I had learned from a previous rail crash was the body count's going to be important. Where the bodies end up matters. And remember when I talked about Virginia, Maryland, and DC? If you accidentally took a body to Virginia, it's going to the Virginia Medical Examiner's Office, maybe in Loudoun, maybe in Richmond. And the ones in DC are going to DC, and I'll never get the body count right. So almost immediately, within that first 30 minutes, we established a casualty collection point that was in the district so we could do that. But in unifying command, we had some challenges getting the message across to everybody because everybody was doing the best they could. Ultimately, I talked to the medical examiner that night. And when I say I talk to these people, I think it's important to understand the relationships that you build before the incident and how important they are. I don't know how many fire chiefs talk to their medical examiner on a regular basis or even are comfortable enough with their police chief to say, meet me at the scene, right? So the medical examiner said, okay, we got it, and I'll call Virginia about the bodies that are there, and I want to activate DMORT, which is a federal disaster mortuary assistance team, a very important asset that we're used to dealing with because of our national special security events. So the medical examiner was leaning forward, and I can't tell you how much that helps. At the 1 hour mark at 21:57, for the first time as the fire chief, I assumed command of an incident and began to unify the command in a more coherent way. The odd part about that was the incident was going well enough that, and we were in 2 secure spaces. If you want to have an incident with no media, put it between an airport and a military base in the middle of the water. They can't get there, right? But they clearly needed to be fed. And it's important, right? There were people that needed messages. So in the next hour, we made sure that we were comfortable with the command structure and how people were communicating. Chief Green from Prince George's County came to the scene. Chief Pavlitz from Arlington came to the scene. The NDW fire chief came to the scene. And we all worked together. I left the scene with the police chief to go over to the airport to talk to the American Airlines people so we could figure out what to say. Because what we didn't want to do was tell the families who are at the airport that their loved ones were dead at that point via the media. We knew at that hour point that we weren't going to have any survivors. But we had to do, our incident became a dignified recovery operation where nobody's going to get hurt, and making sure that we in the fire service or the police department don't do any further harm to the families that have lost their loved ones. And that was a real conversation. When we got to the airport, our mayor met us there. And we got with the airport police, the airport fire department, the airport operations folks, and the American Airlines folks. American Airlines is a small operation at National Airport, so they were already flying people in from Dallas. But we were dealing with some pretty low-level decision makers for American in trying to help them, one, deal with grief. We were all pushing our grief counselors to them for the families. And later that evening, we were able to have a press conference where we said there had been a plane crash, this is what was going on, and we stayed in the rescue mode. We hear a lot of bad things about the media, but one of the takeaways for me from that was, and I've done a lot of press conferences, I've done some very hard press conferences, done some easy ones too. They knew what was going on. They also knew what we could and couldn't say, and they set us up with questions we could answer. I think that goes to relationships with media. It goes to credibility, and it's an important thing to understand. Ultimately, in the first 72 hours, 61 organizations responded to this event, 495 unique response assets, and 2,345 people operated under an incident command structure. We'll come back to how widespread those people are in a minute. But the next thing that happened in the next day was that, and this I had no idea was going to happen, the NTSB wanted the incident commander to meet with the families. And I could talk to the media, I could talk to you, but that scared me. I did not want to talk to them. But I can tell you it was one of the most rewarding experiences because you got to help them get through their grief. And that went on every night for 6 nights until we recovered all the bodies. And the joy of being able to tell them, we have all your loved ones and we've identified them, that's amazing. So that was good. Now we go to the mental health response. And if any of the peer support people are here, yes, I'll meet you afterwards. Our IMT immediately activated the peer support group that we have. We have a pretty robust program. It's the IAFF model. They're good folks. They went to our training academy, and by the end of the operational period, the IMT had put in a plan for everybody demobilizing to have an opportunity to go to peer support, either in their home jurisdiction or at the DC Fire Academy. Big deal. The next day, President Kelly comes through and offers us the disaster assistance team, and today they're here taking care of people from across the region. So thanks, sir. So I only have a short time to talk, but what I want to remind everybody is all the disasters that we go on, and every one of the ones that happen in this country are local disasters first. We're the first responders, and we're the last ones out. We still have people in the water every day, and we probably will for a couple weeks. The feds are leaving on Sunday. They were 72 hours to get here. They may have had some advanced scouts, but they didn't have anything that could help for 72 hours. And the help that they did was related to the operation that they needed, right? Which is the investigation of the plane. You have to be prepared to be the incident commander. You have to understand what unified command is. And my takeaway for our folks was unified command's great. It's a great term. We've got a lot of terminology around that. Somebody's still got to be in charge. And the mayor made sure that everybody was clear that the fire department was in charge of unified command. And we sat in a room for 7 days. We wrestled all the feds that came in when they came in and said they were in charge. And it's like, not really. But what do you need? And we'll make sure everything you need is met. All of your needs will be met. But you just got to tell us, because if you're in charge, I'm leaving because my guys are done dealing with bodies. And they're like, oh, no, we don't do bodies. Okay. This is unified command then. And they're like, oh, okay, we got it. But we did that with every agency that came in. So I think that's really important. As I close, we have a lot of people representing organizations that went on this call. So if you're a representative of a police department or a fire department that's part of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, would you please stand up? I know there's some MPD in here too. Okay. If you're a member of a Maryland or Virginia or other department that came on the EMAC, one of the EMAC requests, please stand up. These are the people that make it happen. And I want to say thank you. Thank you all.
Hey, hold on. Chief, long ago you earned your white helmet, but here's a helmet front signifying that you are now the chief of CFSI.
Thank you.